What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of Transaction Analysis here on Baseball Essential. I am John Check, and today we're here to discuss a couple of moves that went down in baseball this past week. Jerry Dipito was at it yet again. The new Seattle general manager was at it again, trying to bolster a Seattle Mariners team. He's been very active so far this offseason, and he made a second trade this past week. And new Tigers general manager Al Avila went out and acquired a bullpen piece for the Tigers' atrociously bad bullpen that has plagued them for the last 5 years. So, let's first start with the Seattle Mariners trade. The Mariners this week acquired Leonys Martin along with reliever Anthony Bass in a 5-player trade with the Texas Rangers. The trade in total, the Leonys Martin and Anthony Bass went to the Seattle Mariners for reliever Tom Wilhelmsen and James Jones. Those were the and a player to be named. Those were the players in the trade. And this trade makes a lot of sense for both sides. First, for the Seattle side, there's Quad that has lacked a true center fielder for some time, and they've been going through center fielders a lot over the last 5 years. I can remember all the way back when Ichiro was playing center field, and Mike Cameron was playing center field for them. They've gone through quite a few. They traded for Austin Jackson last season to try to fill that center field void, and Jackson came over and really didn't do much in his close to a year with the Seattle Mariners. He was very disappointing. And then James Jones really wasn't a everyday center fielder. He was up and down from the minors. I mean, he's a guy that the stick really is never going to develop anything. He brings a lot of speed, but he's a guy that, is not really a guy you can run out there for 162. I mean, he struggles. He's not a good hitter, but he does have speed, and he can give you some defensive value late in games and can steal you a base. Now, Tom Wilhelmsen is a guy that kind of fell out of favor. Wilhelmsen was a guy a couple years back, was actually one of the Mariners' premier pieces. He was their closer slash setup man for a little while. He saved almost 50 games. Oh, he did save 50 games in 2012 and 2013 combined. This was a guy, he had a 2.50 ERA in 2012, struggled in 2013, had a very good year in 2014, his best year ever as a reliever in 57 games appeared in. He had a 2.27 ERA. Was striking out 8.2 hitters per nine. But last year he had another good year, back-to-back good years after struggling mightily in 2013. The 31-year-old Wilhelmsen posted a 3.19 ERA over 62 innings pitched, and saw the strikeout rate tick back up to his highest mark since 2012. So this is a guy that's going to come over and help bolster a Texas Rangers bullpen that was actually really good last year. Tanner Shepard and Sam Freeman, they were guys that had good years. Kilo had another good year. Sean Tolleson was a guy that had a really good year out of the Rangers bullpen. Chichi Gonzalez, who was a starter slash reliever for them as well. So I mean, they had some guys that did some pretty good work in the Rangers bullpen that actually was kind of underrated. Now, excuse me, Leonys Martin is going to go over to the Mariners and provide them with a center fielder that they desperately needed. Now, Leonys Martin is a guy that has suffered from the injury bug a little bit. He ended up getting replaced by Delano DeShields Jr. This past year because he's just a guy, he came up with some hype. In 2014, this is a guy that had 7 home runs, 40 RBIs, hit 274, got on base at a 325 clip. Posted an OPS of 689, which is not that good. Slightly below league average OPS plus as well. But he brought consistency, and he brought a very good glove in center field every day for the Texas Rangers in 2014, which is what the Mariners hope that he can provide for them as well, and finally fix the void that they've had in center field. And Anthony Bass, of course, is a guy that's going to come over and help provide some depth for the Seattle Mariners as well in their bullpen to replace Wilhelmsen, even though Bass has never been the guy that's been nearly as good as Wilhelmsen has. So that's what the Mariners get on this side. And like I said, for the Texas Rangers side of it, getting Tom Wilhelmsen was a nice move for their bullpen. And James Jones, he's just a guy that's going to go out there, probably platoon in the outfield. You can play him in center. You can play him in any corner spot because he can run down any ball. He's very fast. Probably out there with Delino DeShields, in the outfield, platoon a little bit. And of course, they got the player to be named later, so that remains to be seen. So the trade made a lot of sense. Seattle gets a center fielder that they needed, and they get a reliever. Texas wants to bolster their bullpen, and they get basically a bench speed guy and a guy that can play some outfield for them. He's not an everyday guy, but it's someone they needed. Now, moving over to the Tigers part of this transaction, they traded Javier Betancourt and a player to be named later to the Milwaukee Brewers for Francisco Rodriguez. Now, K-Rod, when this trade first happened, I didn't actually realize how good K-Rod actually has been. When the trade first went down, being a Tigers fan, I was kind of just on the trade. I didn't realize actually how good K-Rod's been. K-Rod posted a K9 this past year of 9.8, so nearly almost 10 strikeouts per 9 innings, so he's good for a strikeout an inning. His walks was his lowest of his career ever at 1.7 per 9. His whip posted his lowest whip ever at 0.888. His ERA was good. His ERA and his FIP, which is fielding independent pitching for those who don't follow sabermetrics, which is an ERA measurer that solely measures what a pitcher can control, strikeouts, walks, home runs, based on that. And his FIP and ERA weren't too far off, which is a good sign to show he wasn't super lucky by his getting bailed out by his defense. And this is a guy, he doesn't quite have the stuff that he used to. I mean, this was a guy who used to have a blazing fastball, one of the nastiest sliders in baseball, good changeup. He had a nice repertoire of pitches. But now he's a guy that obviously is starting to pound the strike zone. He's a lot of familiarity with his repertoire. He knows how to get hitters out. He knows how to work with lesser velocity. He still knows how to strike guys out. He's filling the strike zone. He's not giving up many hits. He's been very effective. I think he had 36 saves last year for the Brewers. He had an ERA of the low twos, which is he's very effective in that matter as well. Only blew 2 saves. So I mean, you're talking about a Tigers bullpen that is somehow managed to get worse than it was over years prior. And this has been a bullpen that's always been historically bad. Really the only year of brightness they could legitimately say they had of any kind of success was 2011. But that was the year, they had Joaquin Benoit in the 8th, and they had Jose Valverde in the 9th, who ended up going perfect 51 for 51, including the postseason that year. So, and they didn't blow a single game after leading 7 innings. So they had some mild success between those guys. Now, this past year, the Tigers, you could blame a lot of this on you could blame some of it on Brad Ausmus. Not so great bullpen management. You had relievers like Alex Wilson, who that he refused to use in the 9th inning role. He used a lot of guys that he shouldn't. Jabba Chamberlain, and he was the 8th inning setup guy for a little while. Even after they got rid of Jabba, they still didn't use Wilson that well. He was using Neftali Feliz after they acquired him as closer in the 8th inning, or from the Rangers when the Rangers released him. I apologize. After the Rangers released him, Neftali Feliz was in the 8th inning role. For some reason, he wasn't using Alex Wilson there. And then Bruce Rendon got delegated to the closer spot after Joaquim Soria got traded to the Pirates. And after Bruce Rendon got sent home for attitude issues, Alex Wilson got like 2 save chances, and then Neftali Feliz, a guy who had an ERA of almost 7, was delegated to the closer's role, and then Wilson got bumped up to the 8th. Now, K-Rod, like I said, he's not the pitcher he used to be. But he is a quality arm, and it's a solid base to build upon. Something that former general manager Dave Dombrowski, never did a good job of. He would go out and he'd get an Octavio Dotel, or he would try to get the big money move into Joe Nathan. But Joe Nathan was a guy who was 39, and all his statistics were trending upwards, the ones you don't want to see. He was kind of getting by on smoke and mirrors for the one good year, his last good year he had in 2013 with the Rangers. And so K-Rod brings you a base, some solidarity, a nice foundation to build upon. Now, if Avila calls it good, like Dombrowski would usually do after, he would go out and get 1 or 2 arms. I mean, he would go out and take... He liked to do the flyer arm type thing. Like this past year, he went and took a flyer on, Tom Grezzolani. The move blew up at his face. And he went and took a flyer on, Josh Zeid. and he never even pitched in the major leagues. Now, he did strike gold when he got Yoenis Cespedes and Alex Wilson, and that trade ended up being more beneficial for the Alex Wilson part of it, considering Alex Wilson had team control for a little while, than it was to actually have Yoenis Cespedes. Even though Yoenis Cespedes netted you Michael Fulmer. But nonetheless, it's a solid base, and if he just doesn't call it good like Dombrowski would do in years prior, it's a nice way to build. Now, they do have, arms in their pen. Like I said, they got Alex Wilson, who's an outstanding, very underrated reliever. They got Al Albuquerque, who has the stuff, but just not the command and the consistency needed to be a reliable, everyday bullpen arm. You still got Bruce Rendon, who the Tigers are going to give another shot to. They're not going to give up on a kid that I think is 25. Even though he has attitude issues, he's very young. You still got Drew Verhagen. Blaine Hardy did a great job from the left side. And you got Matt Boyd if you want to dump him in the bullpen. But I honestly think what's going to go on now is that the Tigers got so much pitching depth. Now, mind you, the quality of it varies. I mean, you got Shane Green, who they acquired last year. You got Matt Boyd, who really doesn't have a spot in the Tigers' rotation at the moment because they're looking to go out and get veteran arms, people more experienced, instead of Matt Boyd, who had mixed results last year when he was the Tigers' fifth starter. And I don't know how much they want to use him out of the bullpen because he's viewed upon more as a starter. And they have Shane Green, who, was going through some issues with the feeling in his fingers, some arthritic. I think I can't remember the exact word, but basically nerve issues in his fingertips. He was going through. So, I think the Tigers now that they're primed to make, with the addition of K-Rod, having Alex Wilson in there now, they're primed to take some of the starting depth, some pitching depth, and move it for either another bullpen arm or try to go out and get a starting pitcher, trade for a starting pitcher, and then sign a starting pitcher after that, so they don't have to spend as much money because their team with already a pretty bloated payroll. So, K-Rod is a nice move and it's a nice piece, but it's not enough. They need one more righty. What I would like to see him do is I would like them to go out and get Joakim Soria back, sign him. That way you got K-Rod in the 9th, Soria in the 8th. Go out and get put Wilson in the 7th. And if they really wanted to do it good, get Darren O'Day and a lefty to go with that. So then your bullpen from the right side would be O'Day, Soria, K-Rod, and Wilson and Rendon, and then you go out and get a lefty to complement Blaine Hardy. Excuse me, I don't know why his name slipped my mind. Then you got a bullpen there that has a lot of depth. K-Rod goes down, you got Darren O'Day, who's more than capable of closing. Or you can toss the ball to Alex Wilson. Or then you got Joakim Soria sitting right there, who was a closer last year. So, that would be some serious things. So, solid start. They're not even close to being a finished product yet for the bullpen wise, but it is very nice to see general manager Al Avila go out and he checked on. You heard they checked on the price of Chapman. You heard they checked on the price of Kimbrel, but the price was too high that they wanted. They didn't want to pay that price, which I don't blame them. But it's nice to see that it's not just going to be some guy that was a cast off. I have another bullpen and we're going to take a flyer, see what happens, but we're going to run with them. And not have a backup plan B when the guy ultimately does fail because he's only going to hit 2% of the time, and 98% of the time it's going to be a failed move, which a lot of his bullpen signings have been. So the K-Rod move made a lot of sense. You get yourself a closer, you get some solidarity, and K-Rod signed through is a very cheap contract too. I think he has a $4 million or $6 million buyout for 2017, or you can pay him $4 million to keep him. So he's cost effective. He's not making much next year, so that's good. So it allows you to allocate your funds to other relievers or starting pitchers. So the move makes a lot of sense. You get your closer, you can build off that, and it's a nice way, it's a nice foundation to build off of, and it's a nice name to see at the back end when you're trying to fix a bullpen that's been terrible. So, good move on the Tigers side. Much needed move. And then for the Texas Rangers and Seattle Mariners trade that made a lot of sense for both sides. Mariners really trying to figure out their starting center fielder situation, even though I don't think Leonis Martin is their answer. But it doesn't hurt to take a flyer on him. And the Rangers, I especially like them getting Tom Wilhelms in because he's nasty. And I think he could be very beneficial to that Texas Rangers bullpen. So that's all I got for you guys today. As always, check out BaseballCentral.com. We have a lot of good stuff on there, a lot of great writers, a lot of great content going up every single day. And be looking out on this offseason for more editions of Transaction Analysis. I'm John Check. Have a good one, guys.